Today is the beginning of football season. It actually started Thursday night, but the NFL officially begins today. This afternoon it begins, and this is a middle school football, so I can actually hold it. It's not the big NFL football. And what's interesting is one of the best coaches of American football in history was a man named Vince Lombardi. Now, most of you don't know him, but those of us who are older know him as the coach of what? The Green Bay Packers. It was the 1960s. He was the best-known coach and won the first couple of Super Bowls, which we'll be seeing in February, but he was the guy who won it. And he started every season, and he would hold a ball like this in front of all these football players who were all decked out, and they had all their playbooks in front of them, and he would always open up with what words? This is a football. This is a football. Now, you would go, all these guys sitting there had played Pop Warner football, they had played Little League football, they had played high school football, they all went to Division I colleges and played football. Now they're playing for the best team in the world in American football, and he goes, this is a football. Why? Because he never wanted them to forget the purpose of the game, which was to get this ball from down that end to that end. Everything else was secondary. It was all important. He had a playbook this thick, they had pads, they had all these things on, but it was a football. Now, I don't play football even though I'm big. My mother was smart and didn't let me play football. I played basketball. Basketball. The only piece of equipment in basketball, if you're not familiar with basketball, is the shoe. Do you realize that? You can play basketball in shorts and big shorts, little shorts, big t-shirts, little t-shirts. There's no pads, there's no shin guards. There's nothing extraordinary about playing basketball except for the shoes. The best coach in college basketball, I believe, ever was a guy named John Wooden. He was in the 1960s and 1970s. They're still writing biographies. I read one a couple months ago that was just written last year. He's been gone for years. And he was a guy that could take good basketball players and make them great, and take great basketball players and make them a team. Now, that is no easy feat. And he has some of the longest records of undefeated. He was at UCLA Bruins. And he would start his practices with guys that were all 6'8" to 7'2", who had played basketball since they were this tall all their life, and said, this is a shoe. And you know what he taught them to do? He taught them to tie the laces. Now, that is the most ridiculous thing in the world, but he said this. He said, if you don't tie the laces right, you're going to get blisters. And if you get blisters, you will not play basketball. A little blister will stop a 7-foot man from playing basketball. And he said, none of my people have blisters. And the reality was, none did, because if you put this on correctly, you may break your legs, you might dislocate your shoulder, you might miss the hoop, but you will not get blisters. And he started every season, and it was funny because early on you got Lou Alcindor and Bill Walton and all these guys there, and none of them would do what he said. And this is what he said. He said, you can learn to tie your shoe or you can play basketball somewhere else. He was willing to lose some of the best players that have ever lived on this planet because they wouldn't tie their shoe correctly. Oh, they could shoot the big shots. They could dunk the ball. Lou Alcindor, soon to become Abdul-Jabbar, could shoot the high hooks, all those things. But until they learned to tie their shoe, they were worthless on his team. In the Bible, there is so much. And we have so much knowledge of the Bible and so much understanding of the Bible. But let me tell you, if we don't understand the core part of the Bible, none of it makes sense. None of it. And the core, just getting down to the basics, is in Romans chapter 1, verses 1 to 17. We could live there, for, as I said, for months and months. I could do a sermon on every single word in those verses. They're so powerful. But today we're just going to look at them. And I want you to study them later on.